Welcome into this Lion Legends segment. In this edition, we're talking with a former UNA standout baseball player and Dr. Steve Kosa, a two-year letterman and starter for North Alabama in 1998 and 1999, a member of UNA's only College World Series team. He was inducted in the UNA Athletic Hall of Fame in 2012. Dr. Kosa, thank you for taking the time to talk with us. And let's just open up. Where are you currently located at today?
Right now, I live in Kansas City, the north part of the city. It's near Liberty, where I actually grew up and went to high school. And I work in North Kansas City, Missouri, which is a lot smaller than Kansas City, but it's about 15 minutes from my house, so it's a pretty easy commute.
So upon graduation from North Alabama, let's talk about your journey. You're a doctor now. Take us through your medical school journey and sort of where you are today.
All right. Well, it's a long story, as you could imagine. So I was a bit late to the party as far as knowing, what I wanted to do. I know I was interested in science early on, so I was taking a lot of biology, anatomy classes, even starting in junior college where I first started out. All the way through UNA. So I got I majored in general biology, and then I had a chemistry minor. It was pretty late, probably when I was a senior, I decided, medicine is what I wanted to do. So I actually had some prerequisite things that were required for medical school that I needed to get done. So I was working as a chemist for about a year and a half while I was getting some physics courses taken care of. Getting the MCAT, which is the medical school entrance exam, studied for, taken. And then, so I went to University of Kansas Medical Center, which is not actually in Lawrence, which is where the big university is. It's actually in Kansas City, Kansas, which is just right across the state line. So I, being a Missouri resident, got to pay the out-of-state tuition for the med center that sits right on the state line. So that was, 4 years of med school, a long process. And again, similar sort of situation. I was a little late to the party with deciding, what I was going to do. I thought I wanted to go into radiology until I did the rotation and decided, well, that wasn't for me. I think it just, people that are put in your path, we've all had these kind of experiences that kind of pushed us in the direction. I think, it's God's plan where we end up. And when I was going through medical school, I had some pretty good experiences with the neurology department at KU, some great professors, made it really interesting, and decided, with my athletics history, kinesiology, anatomy, those sorts of things, I thought neurology was going to work pretty well. I did think about orthopedics. I had some interest there, but from my playing days, I have some continued back issues that only get worse with time. So I thought standing at the operating table for hours and hours, especially when I got older, wasn't going to be a good idea. So with neurology, I don't do any sort of surgeries. I do some procedures, injection procedures, things like that. But I'm mostly seeing patients in clinic and hospital. But when med school was over, I wasn't quite ready to be a neurologist yet. I had to go through residency, which is 4 additional years for neurology. You have to do 1 year of general internal medicine called a preliminary year. And I ended up matching at Mayo Clinic, which was fantastic. I mean, wonderful place. I was very blessed to get to go there and train. For that internal medicine year, though, since I'm from Kansas City and wanted to stay around, I was able to do that at KU before going off north to Minnesota. And so then moving to Minnesota, I mean, that was an experience, a lot colder up there. I'm not a real cold weather kind of person, so it took some adjusting. But as far as training goes, it's top notch. I mean, I came out of there really well trained, very fortunate to have gone there. So, and then along the way in med school, my wife and I had our first child, Sam. And then during residency, my daughter, Mihaela, was born. So quite honestly, my playing career at UNA seems like, a lifetime ago with all that's happened since then. And then from there, from Minnesota, we moved back to Kansas City. That was the agreement. If Jennifer agreed to go to Minnesota, we'd come back to Kansas City. So I worked for HCA, which I think there may be HCA hospitals in Alabama, or at least there's a lot in the South. It's based out of Tennessee, kind of a big hospital corporation. So I worked at Research Medical Center in town for about 5 years, pretty busy stroke center, a lot of hospital work. But then after 5 years, I made the transition closer to home to North Kansas City Hospital, where I've been ever since. I do a lot of outpatient work. I still do hospital, but I've really become a headache specialist. That's where my passions lie right now. And I'm seeing more and more headache, managing a lot of headache patients. And, it's just kind of a natural progression over the years where I always had an interest in headache. And some of that's, well, personally, I have migraine and my wife has migraine. Both of my kids do. So I have a good understanding from that standpoint. And I think that really helps being a headache specialist. And actually, most headache specialists you'll talk to, they have it personally or have multiple family members with it. So probably at this point in time, I'm doing over half my practice is headache focused.
Quite the journey from UNA to where you are today. Let's jump into the University of North Alabama and some of your baseball career. But first off, one of the things we like to ask people in this series, the University of North Alabama, just what does that place mean to you?
It means a lot. I only got to spend, 2.5 years there. So I started after high school. Kind of backstory on my athletic career, at least. Baseball was a bit of a fallback plan for me because I thought I was going to play football in college, and I ended up having a leg injury toward, the end of the senior year, which that can kind of impair sort of recruiting and things for colleges. So I always liked baseball and I played baseball, but I thought I was going to play football. So it was kind of a late decision that I went to Maple Woods here in town. And I had a great coach. It was a great program. Had really good experience there. And actually, the way that where the North Alabama connection comes with Maple Woods is we were playing Kansas City, Kansas Community College, and Coach Keene's brother-in-law is the coach there. And I just happened to have a couple good games against him. And Coach Burleson talked to Coach Keene and Lane, and they invited me down. And just coming down to campus, I thought it was a beautiful campus. I had a good feeling with the coaches that it was a good place to go. There was 4 or 5 other places in the running. North Alabama was the furthest away from home, but it was just a great place. I think what it comes down to is it's always the people. You develop relationships. You have good experiences with people that kind of shape your life as you go, and that definitely happened at Maple Woods, at North Alabama, and Minnesota, and all the places I've been.
So let's talk about your first season at North Alabama. 12 homers that first year. You were an all-conference performer in the Gulf South Conference. Your junior year, before we jump to the World Series team, just what do you remember about year one?
Year one, well, so I have a story about when I first got there. So I was very excited. I was very ready to get started. I think when we got down there, we actually Coach Lane helped to get me set up in an apartment with several other guys. So we got all settled in, and we would go up to the field and do some throwing, do some running, and I made the mistake of not keeping my sprinting shape up necessarily over the summer. So that I went and tried to do a sprint, and I nearly tore my hamstring. So I started out with an injury. I was kind of an injury-prone guy. So, high school, broken leg, about tore my hamstring coming when I first started. So that's pretty discouraging when that happened, obviously. But I healed up quickly, and the training people got to know me. And I think they got to know me quite well over my years at UNA with the back issues and things. So, yeah, so that's how it all started. It was definitely a step up in competition. I could tell when I was meeting the other players. We meet people from, all over the country who would come, California, Arizona. And at that point you start developing friendships with the players, and which is, is the best part, the camaraderie with your other teammates.
And let's jump into that just a little bit, starting off with the 99 season, the College World Series team. But you hit cleanup behind Josh Willingham. Douglas Hargett was on that team as well. Six of you guys ended up being in the Athletic Hall of Fame at the University of North Alabama. I mean, that team, so much talent. What was it like playing with all those guys?
Oh, it was a blast. I mean, it was, just fun watching all that offensive firepower. We scored a lot of runs, I think, that year, and I mean, that's my kind of baseball. Being a position player, I like runs, especially if they're our runs. So yeah, I mean, it was great playing with those guys.
You look also deeper. You guys had three academic All-Americans in Josh Willingham, Douglas Hargett, and yourself. So great on the field, great in the classroom as well. What were road trips like when you guys were all diving into the books as well?
Well, I mean, you had to take your books with you sometimes, and I think Josh Willingham, he may have been in the science department too, if I'm not mistaken. I know Douglas was kind of in the business legal side, which I think he's an attorney now. Is that right? Yeah. So, when you take more challenging courses, it's definitely, it's harder for you as you go. You don't have as much free time. You gotta bring, lug those books along with you. Which can be challenging on a bus, as you can imagine, a bunch of young guys on the bus, and it can get kind of rowdy, and or if you have to take things with you to the hotel room. And as I recall, we would put 4 guys per room. I don't know if they do that anymore, but I can't even imagine doing that today. But we would be in, small hotels, 4 guys to a room, and a quick in and out with whatever city we were playing in for a doubleheader, and off we'd go. So just traveling all over the South.
Let's jump into some of the big moments from your senior year. The Gold South Conference Tournament at home in Florence. You were co-MVP with Josh Willingham. The championship game against Delta State. It's a tie ball game, 2-2. Do you remember much about the 2-run triple you hit that put UNA in the lead for good?
Gosh, I don't actually recall that. I recall it's so long ago. I recall that we were really clicking offensively during that. We were getting clutch hits when we needed them. We were playing good defense. It was great that it was at home. I recall during that time I was having quite a lot of back issues. So much so that I think I got an exception because it was a little strange. We had to stay in a hotel while we were in the conference tournament locally, and I convinced Coach Lane to let me sleep on my own bed due to the back problems. So, but yeah, spending a lot of time in the training room, and I don't think I had too many triples. So, I mean, I was fast-ish, but not too many triples. I much prefer to hit a home run, but I don't recall that specific triple.
25 home runs in your career to 6 triples. So there you go.
Okay.
That would be the 6 right there. The NCAA regional tournament, the 10th time in program history that UNA had advanced. 7 tries before that, UNA never made it out of the region. You guys beat Southeastern Oklahoma twice. You recorded the final out at first base. Do you remember much about that tournament and what that feeling was like when you guys won?
Quite honestly, I really remember the Gulf South Conference better than I do that one. And I think it's because it was at home. And I had, family members were down, and it was sweeter because it was on our home field.
The College World Series appearance, what was that memory like, or what do you take away from that?
So, yes, I remember that one quite well. So down in Montgomery, so, typical staying at the hotel, 4 guys to a room. It might have been 2. It could have been because we were a little, maybe a little better because we're in the World Series. I don't recall, but there was a team from Kansas City in the tournament called Rockhurst, and they had been an NAIA school for a long time, and they had converted over to Division II. So I had played summer ball against some of those guys in this Wood Bat Van Johnson League. As I recall, I don't think I had the greatest tournament hitting wise, but we were doing fairly well. We were advancing, and then we got up against Rockhurst. Unfortunately, the team from Kansas City, Um, and our pitcher, as I recall, he was a little wild. There was nothing on purpose that happened, but he had hit a couple of their batters. I think it might have been the first inning. Um, so I think we had gone 1-2-3 in the first inning. Second inning, I was leading off as the cleanup hitter. Sometimes we would put down a bunt just to get something started. Plus, I'd been slumping a bit. So I don't even recall if Coach Lane had suggested I bunt or if I did it on my own or not. But unfortunately, that first pitch was coming right at my head. So and I just had enough time to just kind of adjust a little bit. The ball actually hit the bat, so it was a foul, it was a foul ball, but it ended up hitting me in the eye, and then kind of busting the eye open. Lots of blood on the field. See, again, ending with an injury. I was pretty good at that. So anyway, so was taken back to the locker room. Fortunately, we had a local radiologist who was sponsoring our team, so they would put a local business person in to sponsor the teams, and we just happened to have a medical doctor radiologist. So it was clear that I wasn't going back in. The eye was kind of swelling over. I had to get the contact out because there were contacts. So they took me to, I don't even know what the hospital was, local hospital, but he had a plastic surgery friend that he called in that took care of things. So that was nice. I got a lot of sutures and things. So unfortunately, that's kind of how my career ended. And I believe we did end up losing to Rockhurst, which, being, coming down North Alabama and then in the end losing to a Kansas City team was not fun.
104 games played in your career at UNA, a 391 lifetime hitter, 143 career RBIs, 33 doubles, 6 triples, 25 home runs. We talked about some of those. You look back at your 2 years at the University of North Alabama, just how can you wrap up your North Alabama tenure?
Well, it was a great time. It was see, the thing about athletics, I think the biggest thing with athletics is most of us aren't like Willingham and go to the major leagues. It's just not going to happen for us. But I think what it does is it's really it's character building. So you have to put a lot of hard work into being a college athlete, and especially if you're going to try to get the grades and go on and do something else after college. I think all of us should plan to do that. But I think it just really instills a great work ethic and gets you prepared for, I think it really helped me to get through, the grueling nature of medical school. Not only is it a lot of book work, but once you start getting into the clinical side of things, there's a lot of just hours, you got to push through. You got a lot of lack of sleep and those sorts of things. So I think that the big thing is with athletics in general is that it leads to an ethic of hard work and dedication, which is that's really what I take away from it. And I always take away people. I mean, I've met a lot of great people over the years. A lot of people have had real positive impacts on my life and have shaped the man that I've become. And I think overall, I mean, it's actually the people is first. And then, after that, of course, is a work ethic. I mean, there were great people in town that would just, they knew I was from far away, and they would invite me over to dinners. Local people that were interested in the program. Guy and Linda Lovejoy, Ken and Sherry Irby would have me over for dinners. That was great. I mean, it goes a long way. It makes you feel welcomed and at home. And not to mention just developing some great friendships. And unfortunately, I don't get to keep in touch with the guys I played with very much. Like, as you probably, Douglas hasn't, we haven't talked for quite a long time. I think probably when I came down for the Hall of Fame ceremonies when we last talked. I actually recently saw Alberto Morales, who played on played shortstop on the 97 team. So I was just in Tampa for a training, and I reached out to him because I know he's down there. He's a cardiologist in Tampa now, so we get to connect there. So that was nice to see him. But unfortunately, we get so busy we don't get to keep those friendships going or see each other as much as we'd like.
2 outstanding years at UNA, a Hall of Famer. Thank you for what you did for UNA, and thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Absolutely, you're welcome, Benjamin. Thanks for having me.